Hi, everyone. I'm Matthew DeSantis.
And I'm Kaylie Shapiro.
And welcome to NYRA Bets and this particularly special video that we're doing on the YouTube channel, the 2024 NYRA Bets Awards. Listen, before we get into giving out some of the hardware, I don't know if we have any hardware to give out, but before we get to that, want to make sure to remind you to like and subscribe to NYRA Bets YouTube channel. We have a lot of great content coming up. Kaylie and I have a Kentucky Derby and Kentucky Oaks early preview that we have. Road to the Derby, Road to the Oaks. That's going to be a weekly occurrence. So you want to make sure to check out that video. Race previews, full card analyses, handicapping and betting tutorials, and so much more. Subscribing is completely free of cost. Just notifies you every time new videos drop on the channel. And there's a lot dropping these days. So make sure to check it out. All right. Well, listen, we decided the Eclipse Awards are coming up here pretty soon. You're excited for the Eclipse Awards.
Yeah, I'm super excited for them.
Yeah. And so I thought, listen, the Eclipse Awards are a lot of fun, generates a lot of debate online, but we thought we'd come up with our own awards here at NYRA Bets. Now, some of them are going to mirror what you see with the Eclipse Awards, but maybe not every category. And then we came up with some fun categories, I think, at the end that really speak to the average horse player and better. So wanted to cover those as well. But before we get into this specific categories, just wanted to ask you, Kaylie, we spent a lot of time together this summer up at Saratoga, down here, obviously, as well. You had a great time Breeders' Cup weekend back here in New York while I was out in California. I was curious, what was your moment of the year in 2024?
Definitely Thorpedo Anna and the Travers. I think that was, the top moment of the year. Just the energy that she brought to the track and everything that she did for the sport. And obviously she has, 5 grade ones this year. So it was just awesome to be able to see her go head to head against the boys, and just the energy that she brought to the track was pretty special. So definitely Travers Day, I'd say, is my favorite day of the year.
Yeah, I know it was a special day for sure. A lot of energy around the track, around the city. It was a really special day. I'd agree. It's hard pressed to come up with a better moment of the year. And this is a good transition as we go to our different categories, and we will kick things off with our horse of the year. And I think this video might end very quickly if I tried to talk about Thorpedo Anna first. So I'm going to kick it over to you. Your horse of the year. You already mentioned the 5 grade ones, incredibly special year, but this was a horse you loved very early and throughout the year, and you think is worthy of this honor.
For sure. It's been a joy to be able to, and a privilege to be able to watch a horse like that run. And, she really turned up the energy at the track all summer. Her accomplishments aside, I think back to walking into the track Travers morning, and I saw 2 older women, like maybe 70s, 80s, in all pink. One of them was pushing the other one in a wheelchair. They were in all pink, and they turned to each other and they said, "This might be the only day that we ever see a filly, beat the boys in the Travers." And it, moments like that, I immediately started to cry. That's what racing's all about. And I think she, completely fulfills all the requirements to be the horse of the year, I'd say.
Yeah, I agree. And it just such a holistic way of looking at it. And I agree with your analysis. She did more to connect to fans than I think any other horse did this year by far. I know some people will be very meticulous about this horse of the year, and they will be very by the book, and they will go, well, she lost to Fierceness. And so, and they'll kind of nitpick on these things, and they'll kind of use these categories as the horse that is best going 1.25 miles on dirt. If you all lined them up, who would win? I've never thought of it that way. I think Horse of the Year is a holistic award. What horse has done the most for the sport? What horse has dominated their division? She has no competition in her own second generation at all. I mean, that was very obvious. As you mentioned, the 5 grade ones. And she really revolutionized the sport in a lot of ways, brought a lot of energy to Saratoga. Credit to Kenny McPeek for all the access she had. You got to see her up close and personal a couple of times at Saratoga.
Any chance I got.
And so that was really there for Horse of the Year. But let's talk about some 2-year-olds. We talked about some established horses here in Thorpedo Anna that we're obviously looking forward to seeing in 2025 as well. But some horses that are emerging this past year might have big 3-year-old years coming up this year. 2-year-old male, we both landed on the same horse, Citizen Bull, who won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. It's interesting. I'm not even sure he's the best horse in Bob Baffert's barn for the Kentucky Derby. But in terms of 2-year-old accomplishments, what he did on the track, I feel deserving of this award just because of kind of how poorly East Avenue and Chancellor McPatrick performed at the Breeders' Cup, Breeders' Cup Juvenile. So ultimately got my vote there as to the top 2-year-old male.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, if it was a personal choice, I'd probably be going with Chancer, but I mean, you have to give it to Citizen Bull. I mean, even his performance in the American Pharaoh, I thought was really impressive. And then back to back, won again in the Breeders' Cup. So yeah, he's definitely, the dominant 2-year-old male winning those 2 races, and especially the Breeders' Cup. So
yeah, absolutely. And listen, 2025 will be a new year, and there'll be a lot of accolades for the other horses that Baffert has, and some of those are going to be horses we're going to be looking forward to seeing next year as well. So 2-year-old female, going back to that Breeders' Cup element. Now, this is unfortunately your choice here. The top 2-year-old female is unfortunately a filly that is not going to be on the Kentucky Oaks Trail. She sustained a minor setback for Brad Cox, but was a perfect 4 for 4 when she ran as a 2-year-old, and that is Immersive, who won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you don't give it to Immersive. She won every single race she ran. Yeah. She won the Breeders' Cup. She was just completely dominant. There was no 2-year-old filly that could even, hold a candle to her. So I thought that, she's very deserving of that award. And I understand, picking Lake Victoria, a horse that is physically impressive and obviously is a really nice filly. But I mean, I went with Immersive. Yeah. Couldn't think of anyone else.
Listen, sometimes you got to zig when other people zag. Kaylie, it was very logical to go with Immersive for sure. And I think we were at Aqueduct when she won down at Keeneland. And I remember us talking about, wow, this filly must be special because Manny Franco left New York on a big stakes weekend to go down to Lexington to ride her in Keeneland. And it was like, Manny gave up a bunch of mounts up here in New York to ride basically one horse that weekend. It was like, he's not letting anybody. He's not letting Florent Giroux get on that horse. He's not letting Louis Saez get on that horse. He's not letting any other jockey get on that horse. That was his. And it's certainly a very special horse. Bummed, obviously, that she's off the Oaks Trail, but we'll see her hopefully later this summer at Saratoga.
Yeah, I tried to beat her all year and I couldn't. So.
That should have been another category. Of course, he tried to beat all year and couldn't. I went with Lake Victoria, Aidan O'Brien's turf specialist who won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies turf. As Kaylie mentioned, probably the most physically impressive horse I saw this year. Her turn of foot is absolutely devastating and was also undefeated like Immersive. And I guess maybe I'm penalizing Immersive a little bit just because you saw horses like Good Cheer and Muhina come out of Brad Cox's barn immediately after the Breeders' Cup. And I'm not even sure Immersive was necessarily the best out of those 3. And so it's possible she's not even the best in the barn, very similar to Citizen Bull. So like I said, I decided to zig. I totally get people voting for Immersive. Makes a ton of sense. Very logical. She's going to be your winner of the Eclipse Award. I just ultimately wanted to give a little bit of a nod to Lake Victoria. Now, a legitimately contentious division is 3-year-old male. And this is one that you and I have talked a lot about, both on camera and off. We've written a lot about it. A lot of ink has been spilled over this topic in general. Fierceness versus Sierra Leone. I know where Mike Rapoli stands. Okay, there's no question about that. Pretty sure I know where Chad Brown stands on this one as well. You went with Fierceness. Talk a little bit about this horse and kind of how I feel like this is a horse that's really grown on you over the last several months.
Yeah, I was always I mean, I still am. I love Sierra Leone. Like, this is really hard to pick between 2 horses that were pretty much even. It could go either way. I mean, obviously Sierra Leone put all the pieces together and got that big win in the Breeders' Cup after, having some lugging out issues, some immaturities that he was able to work out. But Fierceness, I think, when it came down to it, and it wasn't the large field size of the Breeders' Cup, and it wasn't the large field size of the Kentucky Derby, when they went neck and neck in Saratoga, that was the horse that consistently put the other horse away each time. And I think Fierceness also showed a ton of heart. His Travers win was, I think, incredible. And he also ran a freakishly good race in the Breeders' Cup as well. So it could go either way. I had to give it to Fierceness.
Yeah, listen, I get it. Fierceness, incredibly impressive and incredibly similar resumes. They both have 2 grade 1s. Fierceness having that Florida Derby and the Travers. Sierra Leone having the Breeders' Cup Classic and the Bluegrass. They both have a grade 2. Sierra Leone having the Risen Star, Fierceness having the Jim Dandy. You mentioned they locked up basically 4 times this year. Fierceness won 2 of them. Sierra Leone won once, and his other one, he vastly outfinished Fierceness in the Kentucky Derby, coming up just short that day. So tail of the tape is very, very even. I do feel like Sierra Leone, he ultimately got my choice because he could put it all together in the Breeders' Cup Classic. There was an element of consistency there. Fierceness, maybe not quite as consistent with that poor effort in the Kentucky Derby, kind of a questioning effort in the Holy Bull to kick off the year. Sierra Leone just kind of answered the bell every time, he burned a ton of my money, to be clear. And then when I decided not to bet him anymore in the Breeders' Cup Classic, he decided to win. But despite of that, I will still give him the award for 3-year-old male. But I'm just happy both these horses are coming back in 2025.
I think it's incredible. I mean, obviously, if Sierra Leone had been more or maybe worked out a lot of those immaturities earlier in the year.
Yeah.
I mean, I still think he's going to win.
Yeah.
But I just, Fierceness really won me over in terms of the heart that he showed.
Yeah, so. He really did. Really, really did. No, that stretch run with him and Anna in the Travers was amazing. Well, we're happy that these 2 horses are coming back in 2025 because the older dirt male division in 2024 was not the strongest that we've seen. It was a lot of horses kind of trading blows with each other, taking turns, winning, losing. You didn't have a lot of star power in this division. And ultimately, we both landed on National Treasure as our top older dirt male. A lot of because of the work he did the first half of the year, winning the Pegasus World Cup, winning the Met Mile, but, kind of ended the year a little bit on a whimper and didn't really finish strong. But still, it's hard to make a case for many other horses, I think.
Exactly. He's still, the most accomplished of the year out of all the older dirt males. So I think that's going to be a pretty unanimous decision.
I think so, too. I think people could try to get cute with a horse like Post Time, maybe, or maybe a full Serrano type of a horse, just because of winning the Breeders' Cup Mile. But it's hard, or Straight No Chaser, maybe going with more of a sprinter as an argument in this category. But I think National Treasure winning those 2 grade ones in the first half of the year kind of gets it for me. Older dirt female. This is a little bit like the immersive Lake Victoria thing. Maybe it's just something with me and fillies. I like to be contrary about it, and mares. But you ultimately went with a horse that we both absolutely love. We saw in person down during the Haskell day running in that Molly picture, and that was Idiomatic.
Yeah, she was, again, to me, the most dominant older dirt female this year. And, her losses, her 2 losses, you can attribute to jockey error as well. So, yeah, I very much thought, she's deserving of this award as well. And I think she put together a really good campaign this year. So
she did. And she put together a very good campaign. And you're right. The 2 losses were, questionable rides by Florent Giroux, I thought. And do you penalize a horse for something that's out of their control? Even the day we were there at the Haskell for the Molly picture, that was one where Giroux kind of really tried to walk the dog up front and was literally startled by the fact that Irad Ortiz Jr. made an early move, and he had to really press Idiomatic for the last 3 furlongs, basically, which is not her game, to kind of suddenly start sprinting. And it was all class. That's the reason she won. I ultimately decided to kind of zig a little bit and go with a Dare Manor and a horse that I thought was really interesting, and a horse that for Bob Baffert, who just kept getting better, I thought, and one that really won those 2 grade 2s or 2 grade 1s, won a grade 2, and then also, traveled to Oaklawn to run in the Apple Blossom, which is something you don't always see California horses doing. So shipping out of California to win abroad. Only 4 starts this year, but very comparable resume to Idiomatic in terms of 2 grade 1 victories and then a smaller graded stakes victory for each. And just bummed that these 2 weren't able to head-to-head with Thorpedo Anna in the Breeders' Cup Distaff. But I think Idiomatic likely wins this at the Eclipse Awards. But I feel like a Dare Manor kind of has gotten forgotten a little bit, but she was on track to have a great year.
For sure.
Yeah.
I agree.
One person we absolutely agree about, and we both are a big fan of, is trainer Kenny McPeek, who I think did more to help this sport this year than anybody else.
For sure. Yeah. He, everything that he did with Thorpedo Anna and Mystic Dan as well.
Yeah,
I mean, he won the Derby and the Oaks this year. So, I mean, if you're going on overall stats, you might look at like Chad Brown, maybe, but obviously I had to go with Kenny McPeek for everything that he did for the sport this year, and just, sweeping the Derby and the Oaks as well. So
I agree. It's funny. Thorpedo Anna has become such a superstar that you do forget that, oh, yeah, he won the Kentucky Derby with Mystic Dan as well, literally the next day. So had an amazing year. The access that he provided to fans, man, I wish more trainers did that. I mean, that was great.
And just, when you see all the little girls holding Thorpedo Anna posters and watching her work and watching her school in the paddock, he makes all of that happen.
Yeah.
So that's super important to, get younger people into the sport, especially little girls, when you have a superstar horse like that.
Yeah.
And the access that he provided, I thought was really special.
Absolutely. I mean, horses like Rachel and Zenyatta created a lot of fans, and she's going to be another one. We're going to see the ripple effects of this 10, 15 years from now. A whole bunch of young people who really got excited about this sport are going to start coming into it as they get older and mature. So listen, those are the more traditional awards, but let's check out some of our very specialty awards. Long shot of the year, best bet of the year, tough beat of the year, most surprising horse, and then the most anticipated horse for 2025. We'll start with long shot. And I got to give you a lot of props because your first video that you did giving out a long shot hit big. And David of Athens, what a winner. And what a way to kick off your first video for us on NYRA Bets.
I was pretty surprised myself. I mean, when I saw the horse float up to 22-1 or something, I was like, oh, maybe I'm not on the right long shot here. This horse is so dead on the board. So I was really happy that was, the first video I did on X for NYRA Bets. So hopefully I pick another one like that soon.
Well, the ROI on 22-1 is a pretty good one. It keeps you around for a while. I had a similar dynamic. Charm Your World, who's the half sibling to Rock Your World, won in debut at 27-1 at Santa Anita this April, and that was my long shot of the day on NYRA Bets. And very similar to you, that was a horse that was 6-1 in the morning line. And one of the things people always ask me, like, oh, do you bet on your picks? Yeah, I do bet on my picks. And I usually just do a very simple $5 win place bet or a $10 win place bet, depending on their odds. But I remember I was busy that day for some reason, and I knew I wouldn't be able to watch the Charm Your World race. And so before the race ever started, I just put in, $10 on a $5 win place bet. And I got busy, and a couple hours go by, and I look down at my phone, and my phone's blowing up. And people are like, oh, my God, oh, my God, oh, my God. And then I go and watch the race and go, oh, I should have put a lot more than $5 win place on this horse. And I couldn't believe it was the same sort of thing, floated all the way up to 27-1. And, that was a good long shot. You remember those. Because something else you're going to remember is that Breeders' Cup Classic where you nailed the trifecta that year as your bet of the year for you in 2024.
Yeah, I spent a ton of time handicapping the Breeders' Cup Classic, like all night in my room, like flashlight on my form, like for hours. So, I always, as soon as the entries came out, I knew I was going to go with Sierra Leone to win.
Yeah.
So I stuck with that, and then I was able to hit the exacta, the trifecta, and the super. So I made all the money back that Sierra Leone costed me throughout the year. So, and I was just so happy to see that horse win as well. So I was jumping up and down for a couple of reasons.
Yes, there was video evidence of this, if I'm mistaken, from some of our colleagues at NYRA Bets. That was a great moment. I knew you had loved Sierra Leone the whole time, and I was very devastated that my boy Forever Young ran third. But my bet of the year was Highland Falls in the Jockey Club Gold Cup. That was a race where a lot of people had Arthur's Ride as highly anticipated. I thought that there would be some questions if you press that horse and going 1.25 miles. And I thought that the ride that Flavian Pratt gave Highland Falls might be the best ride I saw a jockey give a horse all year. And Highland Falls was a horse that had been previously jockeyed by Giroux. And I just thought got some questionable rides at different times. And it was a horse I just always believed in. And it wasn't a huge price, I think 6-7-1, but won that day at 6-1 and paid a nice little payoff in that Jockey Club Gold Cup in that final weekend at Saratoga. And was also part of my favorite moment after that weekend. I'm out at the backside grill, and there's a family across the way kind of making the money signal at me and smiling and waving. And I walk over to say hi, and their 12-year-old son goes, I saw your Instagram live story on the NYRA channel the other day where you picked Highland Falls. So we came to the track, and I told my parents to bet $50 on that horse. hey, I'm glad it worked out. And so I put it towards the kids' tuition a little bit. So, so I love it that that ended up playing out for that family. So that was pretty cool. That was one of my favorite ones. But for every best bet, there's a tough beat. And you mentioned your best bet, is Breeders' Cup, but Sierra Leone cost you a lot of money in that Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, I had future bets on Sierra Leone. I locked in pretty good odds. I think it would make me sick to remember what they were, but they were really good. And then, he lost by a nose, obviously. So that was pretty devastating. I even bet more the day of on top of my future pools because, my dad and I were just super team Sierra Leone. So that was definitely a tough beat. And then another one I'd have to say is when McAfee, Thorpedo Anna's half-sibling debuted, I set an alarm to bet the race, and the alarm never went off. And I missed it, and the horse went off at 8 or 10 to 1.
Yeah, good odds. Yeah.
So definitely those two.
Yeah, no, sometimes the tough beats are the races you miss, for sure. There's a pick 5 that I missed that I would have hit this year that just absolutely still burns me up. For me, the tough beat was Ben Tornado in the Breeders' Cup sprint. This was a Jose D'Angelo horse that I loved, and I was touting this horse to everyone who would listen. I love this horse. Thought this horse was a great long shot. The only 2 horses that this horse had lost to before the Breeders' Cup, going one turn, was Bookham Dano and Forever Young. That's it. That's the list. You lose to those 2 horses, and that's it. I mean, and this horse was 30 to 1 on the morning line, went off at 28 to 1 that day in the Breeders' Cup sprint. And I just thought this horse was sitting on a gold mine. I had a fair amount of money on him to win. Ultimately, Straight No Chaser, who has never passed a horse in his career, decides to come from off the pace and win and beat Ben Tornado, who finishes a very hard-fought second that day. So that was one of those where I was like, you did all the homework, you saw the thing right, but it just didn't quite work out. Speaking of not quite working out, most surprising horse this year, I kind of went with a most surprising in maybe a little bit of a negative way. Horse like Derby, horse I absolutely love. I thought ran a huge race in the Kentucky Derby last year, or in 2023, had almost unseated Christophe Lemaire out of the starting gate, still ended up running and finishing ahead of a lot of really nice horses that day. Comes back off the 6-month layoff, runs second to White Abario in the Breeders' Cup Classic. And I'm thinking, here's the horse that's going to come through in 2024 and be a monster. He's going to go run well in Saudi and Dubai. He's going to come over here for the Breeders' Cup Classic. He's going to run huge. None of it happened. And he's a little bit of a snake-bitten horse, it feels like, but I just was so disappointed. It was a little surprising how poorly he ran this year. But you went, obviously, with a more optimistic view, and a horse that we both really like, got to see up close this summer at Saratoga, Farbridge, as a surprising one. Yeah,
Farbridge, I think had like a grade 1 maybe early in his career, and then kind of,
had a lot of issues. Just kind of always had tough trips, it feels like. Yeah.
So then to see him put together 2 back-to-back grade 1s, not that I was surprised. Obviously, he's a really nice horse, but more so just really happy for that horse that you put together those 2 wins.
Yeah, and he's a horse that also bounced around stables a little bit. Started off with Christophe, went to Pletcher, went back to Christophe, and interesting horse that really likes that inside move. Loves to be on the rail and make that inside move, which is so rare for turf horses. Usually like to angle out and make that run down the middle. And then when he got paired up with Joel Rosario, it felt like, this is the right jockey for this horse.
For sure.
Inside move coming from off the base. Yes, please. Joel Rosario majors in that. So,
for sure.
Yeah, that was great. And it's always good because it's LSU Racing Stables too. So it's always a little bit of a party when they get a win too in the winner's circle. So that's a lot of fun. Now, listen, that was 2024, 2025 coming up. A lot of horses we're excited about. We already mentioned all those ones returning. The big 3 of Sierra Leone, Fierceness, Thorpedo Anna. We all know we're excited about them. But you really love this one horse coming into the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. You're really still excited to see this Brendan Walsh runner, East Avenue, and what he can do in 2025.
Yeah, I'm so excited to see what East Avenue can do. I know it's early, but definitely I'd say my Derby pick right now. I mean, I know that's super early, but I love this horse. He feels like a really special horse. Obviously, he has a ton of ability. He's beautiful. He's bred to death. The dam is a half to the dam of Cody's Wish. So, I mean, I really love this horse, and I get a special feeling when he runs as well. And as I think Tyler Gaffleonis gets the same feeling as well. So I'm really excited to see this horse, especially after things didn't really work out for him quite in the Breeders' Cup. I think he's going to come back with a vengeance this year.
Yeah, he is one that, really was left at the gate in the Breeders' Cup. And that was one of those races where it was over as soon as it started. And what are you going to do? He's so talented. He's going to be a really exciting horse. My most anticipated horse is Locked. This horse is coming off a win in the Cigar Mile, is likely going to be your favorite in the Pegasus World Cup. And it feels like this is the horse that might be able to challenge the Sierra Leone and Fierceness duo as the kind of the top older dirt male this year. It was a horse that I feel like a lot of people forgot about because he was on the Derby trail very briefly, was training up for the Fountain of Youth, had an injury, set back, didn't see him again until October. And all of a sudden come back with a vengeance. And for Todd to move this horse from basically allowance company straight into a grade 2 with the Cigar Mile, and now made it very clear, even a month before the Cigar Mile, our goal is the Pegasus World Cup. That tells you everything you need to know, because he's training, Fierceness. He's training Mind Frame as well.
Right.
So he's got a couple of nice horses in his stable. And if he goes, no, Locked is my Pegasus horse, well, that tells you what he thinks of that horse. So I'm excited about him and what it symbolizes, which is potentially a lot of exciting rivalries in 2025. I'm
super excited about Locked as well. And he's just a beautiful horse as well. So
he is. You got to see him up close in that Cigar Mile day. And that was, a lot of fun to see those horses run that day. So listen, those were our 2024 NYRA Bets Awards. I hope you enjoyed it. Kaylie, you and I have a lot of great things coming up in 2025, and we're going to have even more awards, I'm sure, next year at this time. So listen, appreciate Kaylie you coming on and hanging out with me for this.
Of course.
And thank you all for tuning in and watching this 2024 NYRA Bets Awards. Make sure to press that like button and subscribe to NYRA Bets YouTube today to get all of our race previews, full card analyses, and all the good stuff here. All right. For Kaylie Shapiro, my name is Matthew DeSantis. Wishing you a great and profitable day at the races, and reminding you, friends, it's now post time.